Thank you, and thank you for joining. So I'm Jo, this is Warren, and thank you, Alex, for that intro. So yeah, what we're going to be talking to you about is around how you can grow your brand on Amazon, and the general e-commerce market, the growth of the e-commerce market, and how you can use Amazon to grow it here and also overseas as well in various different countries. So I've done a bit of an intro, but we're both the co-founders of Totalyty. So Warren is my business partner, but also my husband, and we're still speaking, which is a good sign. So we're an Amazon e-commerce agency. So we solely focus on Amazon because it's a bit of a beast within itself. And basically we help businesses to get set up on Amazon in the first place, but also to then grow and bring them over into new markets. We're also proud to be verified Amazon ad partners, which means that we've been proven to be able to help brands within their advertising space and really help them to grow through advertising. And also we are part of the Amazon service provider network. So we are verified partners. So I guess that gives our clients a little bit of peace of mind as well, who they're working with. So I'll move on to Warren, because we've got limited time to go through quite a lot of info. So.
Yeah, and just, to give you a bit more context, I suppose, about Amazon, it's probably easier to start with the broader e-commerce marketplace. But as we all know, particularly over COVID, but the market has just exploded. It's going to reach $6.4 trillion this year. And by 2026, e-commerce platforms will be worth 1/4 of all global retail sales. So that's an enormous statistic, and this year it's going to grow 10%. So even in the economic conditions that we're seeing around the world, it's still growing, which is pretty amazing. And also, this is an interesting statistic. The main motivation for consumers, 45% of consumers are saying that the free shipping element is really important to them, and that's why they look on e-commerce platforms. And we know there's a multitude of e-commerce platforms around the world that someone could choose from. They don't all do free shipping, so there's a key consideration for brands, for customers. So why did we decide to carve out a company in the Amazon space, or why would you, or as brand owners, potentially want to be selling on Amazon? Well, it's the largest captured audience in the world, e-commerce audience in the world. So whilst you could have your own websites and use your own social media avenues to drive traffic, the traffic is already there on Amazon. It's just about getting your products in front of them. So there's 2 billion visitors each month. That's unique visitors each month on Amazon, and that's coming from 300 million active users, meaning there's a lot of repeat purchasing going on amongst the audience that Amazon has. And there's probably no surprise that Amazon has the leading position, 37.8% market share in the US, and that's growing around the world. Here in Australia, we're a bit slow in catching on. I think we just beat eBay early this year. We were one of the last markets to sort of take that #1 position, but Australia has got there. Amazon does command a lot of trust and credibility with consumers out there, and their silver bullet, if you like, is the Amazon Prime program. So probably some or most or all of you are Prime members. You pay your subscription, you get your Netflix style entertainment as well as that. But what's core is that you, as a customer, also get free Prime shipping. And so there's 230 million or more than 230 million Prime customers around the world, meaning those customers, when they want to make a purchase online, the first e-commerce platform they are going to go to is Amazon, because they just want to know that, because they know they're going to get free shipping if the product they're looking for is there. And this is an incredible statistic that the renewal rate is 99% after 2 years for Prime programs. So it's adding value for someone to be able to have a statistic like that. You've probably seen a lot of the fulfillment centres around the world in newspapers, the news and such. But we've seen their warehousing and their automated robotics that they're using now across their fulfillment centres around the world is changing the game. Amazon's got a mission to deliver products to consumers within 40 minutes of you making an order, and so that's where all of their investment is going, into this kind of global infrastructure. And part of that is fulfilled by Amazon FBA. So consumers can brands can fulfill products themselves to the consumer, or they can leverage Amazon's infrastructure to do it. And we've seen the results when brands do that, and the sales will grow exponentially. And also just a few things here. Some of them you might be familiar with, some of them not. Amazon has, in some markets around the world, have their own airline that compete with the major postal services. Amazon Prime Air is coming later this year, so that's the drone delivery service. So that's coming in the US, Italy and UK later this year, so it's finally going to happen. Amazon Locker is like a self-service delivery option where it will go to a certain place, you go in there, put in your details and take it out of the box. And Amazon Flex is, it's like an Uber style delivery. If you've got the right kind of car, you've got a phone, then you can deliver packages on behalf of Amazon. So it's all about them finding new ways for you to be able to get your products faster. And just in terms of global expansion, that's a core part of what we do, helping brands to scale their products into new markets. We're partners of Amazon's in 22 countries around the world. And that's just, leveraging that infrastructure that they've got in each of those markets.
And before we move on, I might just mention as well, like all of these stats kind of talk about what a huge juggernaut Amazon is, which is great. But I think what we love and why we can sleep at night is because we support brands which are small and large and actually help them to get on that first page of Amazon and really competing against each other. So you don't need to be a huge brand to be on Amazon, which I think is a big why Amazon for us, is that we help mum and dad brands and we also help big global brands. But if you're doing the right thing, you can actually succeed really effectively. So I guess whilst all this is true about it being enormous, like I think a big thing about today is support local. And that's what I've loved actually so far about meeting everybody today. And that's what we love about this, is that we can actually help smaller businesses as well as larger ones to actually compete in that space, which is really kind of satisfying for us on a day-to-day basis.
Stand over here, so I'm not.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe move a bit closer.
So in terms of visitation to Amazon, we thought this would be a really interesting one for this audience today. Not surprising, the US has the most visitors, 51 billion last year. It's a lot of visitors to their sites. But some of these might be surprising. Australia is the fastest growing market for Amazon around the world. Size of the prize is a bit smaller. We're still number 12 in terms of visitation. Japan's probably one of the most interesting ones for us. We've got a lot of brands engaging with us to take them into Japan. The year prior, Japan was number 4. They're already number 2. And what's unique about Japan is that whilst they've got 11.5 billion visitations, the amount of sellers, the amount of competition for brands is much, much lower than its surrounding competition or its surrounding markets. So there's a real opportunity in Japan to make some money and not invest as much to win in that marketplace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when in Australia as well, like you go to UK or the US and Amazon's your household name, like everyone's talking about it, that's just where you would shop. But over here, it's just it's kind of lesser known. So people say to us, like, why would I ever sell on Amazon? Until you actually then realize what brands have been successful. So that's kind of a lot of what we do, is real education around what brands would succeed. We can also look at what are people doing on Amazon, like what is the revenue in different countries. So then going, okay, would it make sense to sell in Australia, or actually is it probably Japan or a different market where customers would be looking for your product as well? So that's a lot of the intel, because it's not always just a one size fits all. And I'm following you because of the microphone as well.
Yeah, I picked up on that. Yeah.
I'm not just following you around the stage. Okay, so there's 2 types of engagement on Amazon. So just to really simplify it, and Alex has just stood up, which means we've got 5 minutes. There's 1P and 3P. 1P is more like your wholesale model. So you sell your stock to Amazon, they sell it on your behalf. You do have less control over the pricing though. So Amazon does lead that pricing and have control of it. And also in certain markets, you will struggle a little bit more to get into that into 1P, because you need to be invited. So say like a UK, US, more of a saturated market, you might struggle if you're a smaller brand. Australia, you may have more of a chance. 3P is where a lot of people do sell. You can, as long as you're a brand owner, you're going to have your brand rights on there, and you can effectively sell on Amazon, and anybody can do it. And you control that retail pricing. So it's a lot more complex than that, but I guess that's an easy way to break it down. And I'm not going to go into all this because we won't have time, but these are just all the factors that go into being effective and selling effectively on Amazon. So your content, what the customer is looking at, your image is looking great. Do you have the right content which you have with your brand rights? You can basically open up a whole world of opportunity with your content. Advertising is really necessary, otherwise your product just kind of sits there kind of a bit stagnant. And we help with advertising technology to actually help with day parting and basically bidding on keywords on a, throughout the day. Promotions, things like Prime Day, is huge. Black Friday and Cyber Monday was even bigger than Boxing Day this year, so that's kind of really big event on the calendar. And we also help with account management, inventory management. But ultimately, whether you engage with an agency like us or whether you're doing it yourself, there's just kind of an algorithm and a kind of certain way that you can be successful if you know what you're doing. It's just a matter of just knowing how. So as I say, it's only 10, 15 minutes we had, so it's a very short prezzo. So this is just a snapshot of what Amazon's all about. I guess anyone that you do speak to who has a brand or interested in getting on Amazon, or maybe just struggling a little bit, feel free to have a chat to us, whether or not they would want to engage with an agency or not. Happy to have a chat. We've got a QR code there. We're also down on the stand near between NAB and Sanitarium. So happy to have a conversation. And yeah, just let us know if there's any questions or you want to visit us later.
Do we have time for questions? Yeah.
Yeah? Any questions? Yeah.
With the FBA model, for example, and what do you recommend to be ready for that? Because I hear it's a lot of investment, for example.
Not really. So in terms of FBA, so just for anyone who's not aware, Fulfilled by Amazon, FBA is basically where your product goes into their warehouse and they just actually fulfill those orders for you. FBA allows you to basically, it kind of helps in the algorithm to be more visible to customers and actually take part in a lot of these big promotional events that you see. You won't be eligible if you're not with FBA for some of those promos. In terms of investment, they do take a cut because obviously there's a certain margin that they would use to actually fulfill with the picking and packing. The actual storage fees are very, very small, but there's a certain margin. There's actually a calculator online you can use to find out what that margin is if you put in your cost price and things. So that's quite visible to customers to be able to see. And then ultimately, if you were just to kind of try it out and send in like a certain number of units and not go too hard, you could just kind of test the strategy and just see how it goes, and then just kind of do it slowly once you've tested the theory. Is there anything I've missed out of there, do you think, that in terms of investment?
Only that we've seen the results in terms of customers that sell via FBA or fulfilled by FBM, fulfilled by merchant themselves, and typically Amazon will favour customers that sell via FBA, and we've got customers that do a blend. So if you're selling a bathtub, you're probably better off right now delivering it yourself or arranging that fulfillment yourself. But if you're selling your bath taps, that's probably better off done through FBA. So there's different criteria that can help you calculate that.
And we also did a cost exercise with a client recently about FBA versus FBM and what was cheaper. For most of their products, FBA actually ended up being cheaper than fulfilling themselves. So that was a really quite interesting exercise to do. So I think there's a lot of rumours that go around about the percentage that Amazon takes, and we actually find that in conferences. People just give us this stat and we're like, where's that come from? But it is actually visible. If you just literally go on to Cost Calculator Amazon, plug in your stats and you can basically find out there. But yeah, happy to chat if you need more info. Sure.
So is there, I know over in America, food is quite common on Amazon, people buy their groceries.
Yeah.
How is the food scene in Australian Amazon going? Are people actually purchasing food on there yet, or what's kind of the stats?
More your pantry kind of items, I would say. We've actually got a few clients ourselves within the food and more the pantry, drinks, things like that. Alcohol is actually a very fast growing category. Whether people at the moment go straight there for their groceries is another thing, I think. But I think what we're finding is that Australia is following suit a lot with those other countries like the US and the UK. So, I mean, I don't know whether you want to go into it.
Well, and what we find on Amazon within the food space is that people are buying in bulk. So we'll sell popcorn, but instead of selling a bag of popcorn, we'll sell a box of Cobb's popcorn. So people are buying that in wholesale. Same with chocolate, in bulk protein bars, in bulk drinks, cases.
Yeah.
Whilst we do the single units as well, it makes more sense for the brands to sell in the case packs or even more. And there seems to be an audience for that in the food space.
And sometimes people's worst sellers on other platforms are their best sellers on Amazon, which is really weird. But then, it's interesting because sometimes they'll be quite surprised.
It goes to our conversation earlier with the supermarkets. I mean, in standard retailing, you engage with a retailer using a planogram and you get a certain spot on a certain shelf that you have to really fight for, where we're using algorithmic equations to get your product right there. You might be a non-known brand and we can get you up with the world's best brands right side by side. And that's something that e-commerce has an advantage of.
Yeah.
How exciting is that? So I would have liked to have seen your sales growth before COVID and then from then on, simply because I think during that time it gave a huge percentage of the population confidence to actually just buy online.
Yeah,
right.
It's so true actually.
I can't help but think though there's a lot of scams and whatnot that also associated with it. I don't know. Yeah, I think of eBay and I just think of scams and hacks and all that.
You're right.
And and I'm not going to be so naive to say it doesn't happen on Amazon, but I mean, is there anything you can share?
Yeah, I mean, we actually work with brands a lot so fraudulent products. So we work with a very well-known global brand in the fashion space, and they have people who are selling counterfeit products. And so what happens is through the brand registry and through the certain tools that you have, you can actually get them shut down off Amazon. So I think that's the kind of thing where there's a lot of stories that go around the eBays and things like that, and they kind of get compared. But I think when you've got the certain tools and you know what you're doing, you can actually find out who is selling that. Is it actually counterfeit? People can give brand access though. So some brands might say, I don't care who sells my product on Amazon, and they can give that to anybody to sell, and they don't mind. Other people, if you don't want anyone else selling your product and you've got those brand rights, you can actually have quite a lot of control on Amazon of doing that. And they're not kind of shy to shut people down who are doing the wrong thing. Like they're pretty fierce with that.
And also returns, they make it so easy for customers to return. Which is another reason why customers go to Amazon, because they know that even if they just chose the wrong product, they can send it back very easily.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
How many distribution points do you have?
How many distribution centres across? How many is it in Australia now?
There's 6 fulfilment centres in Australia.
In different states?
Sorry?
Nationally, in different states?
Yes, in different states. Yeah.
So if you were to try and sell nationally, would you send it to the main one in your state, redistribute, or would you send? We do work with Amazon to pick specific fulfilment centres, but typically it will be given to you. So depending on where they're seeing a need, which is again algorithmic, they will, the biggest ones in Kemps Creek here in New South Wales, so a lot of your stuff will go there. But if they see needs in Brisbane or Perth or Melbourne, it automatically gets sifted around. So you send it to one distributor?
You can do. It's got to be by request.
Yeah, there's been a time where I've set up a shipping plan for a client and it's split it up because obviously it's probably run out of storage space or something in there, or maybe part of their product categories are more likely to go to another distribution centre. But yeah, you can get an element of control, but you can't definitely guarantee. There is an option with smaller packages that you can actually drop them off yourself at the fulfilment centres. There's certain limits on size and number of parcels, but there's lots of different options. And there's Amazon partner carriers you can also work with, which are cheaper, as well as using your own shipping partners. Yeah. So there's actually, there's more and more options opening up all the time, isn't there? There's, direct fulfillment. We've got actually some clients who do a couple of different types of distribution. They have some things in FBA, they distribute some things themselves. And that's often an approach where if you've got your great sellers, get them into FBA. If you want to test the theory with some of your smaller sellers or your lower volumes, do it yourself first, then get them into FBA. So you can kind of just trial and test,
It's good that they do that, because Amazon will, if you're sending something to a foreign country, they will tell you where the demand is. So your products might end up in, let's say if it's the US, in Dallas, you might not have thought that was the best fulfillment centre, but they will put it there knowing that that's the closest contact point to your customers. So it's really quite powerful in that sense from an analytical point of view.